everybody and welcome back to my channel. Well, this is my last video of 2017, at least my last full video of 2017. And of course I will be back next year, so look for that video the first weekend of 2018. But to close out 2017, I thought I would tackle a topic that is probably on the minds of a lot of you, but you might be embarrassed to ask. And that is, how does a post-op transgender woman like myself masturbate? And are there any differences to how we used to do it before? The answer to that is yes, there is a big difference actually. The old way really isn't much of a mystery, I think. I mean, you know, just that kind of pumping motion. And given enough time, yeah, I would come. And those orgasms were good if short, and the new ones I think are better. And it never took very long, maybe a minute and a half if I was in the right mood. And on the long side, it would take maybe 5 minutes to 10 minutes. But before I had my bottom surgery, I did a little research into how my masturbation technique would change after my surgery. Obviously, the equipment changed, so the way I would get there had to change as well. And it turns out some of the surgeons actually had some information on this on their websites. And the information I found talked about how it was going to be now a rubbing motion instead of a pumping motion. And sure, that pumping does do some amount of rubbing, but not in the same way. And it was recommended that before we had our surgery that we would change our masturbation technique to get our body used to the new way. And of course, wanting the best possible result after my surgery, I gave that a try. And I did that by rubbing the head of my penis, very much like you would rub a clitoris. And I tried rubbing and rubbing and rubbing for quite a long time. And it never would get me there, and I actually found that quite discouraging. It felt good. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, it felt really good. But no matter how long or how hard or soft or whatever I used, it would not get me through the big O. So the time finally came after my surgery, and that was about 6 weeks. They recommend 6 to 8 weeks or so, that I started that long and arduous, although fun, process of trying to get myself to an orgasm with my new equipment. And it turns out that I had to throw away everything I'd known before about my body. Things were all rearranged in new places, things that felt good before didn't quite feel the same anymore, wouldn't get me there. Obviously I couldn't do that pumping motion anymore because there was nothing to pump. And this took months, not weeks or days or hours, which makes me wonder how many people just give up. There are of course reports of women who say they can't orgasm after they've had surgery. And I have to think that some small percentage of them don't realize how much work it's going to be to actually get to that orgasm afterwards. And here's a few things that I found. One of those was that my clitoris was way too sensitive to touch right away. Whereas before I didn't really have to warm up, I can just go right at it. I had to kind of work my way up to it. And comparing notes with my cisgender girlfriends, they say the same thing. Obviously not all cisgender women or even all transgender women are like this, but foreplay is a pretty big deal. Take note guys, and lady-loving ladies, although I expect the ladies probably already know that. And when you're by yourself, foreplay means things like touching other parts of your body, just taking the time to relax and wash away the cares of the day. It occurs to me that whereas before masturbation actually did wash away the cares of the day, that was the whole point of it, now I actually have to do that beforehand. I also found that penetration was a big turn on for me. It wasn't something I could do in quite the same way before. And by having something up in there, it is a constant reminder that I am now very much different. And if that thing happens to vibrate, all the better. And if that vibration happens to pulsate, better still. I also found that that vibration, along with an in and out motion, doubled and tripled things, especially if I concentrated on the top wall of my vagina. Some of my earliest orgasms were achieved through there, and those were very different. I came to realize those were G-spot orgasms. And yes, I actually do have a G-spot in about the same place that a lot of my cisgender female friends seem to have theirs. If I pushed up kind of hard on that top wall and rubbed it back and forth, I could get to myself to a peak of feeling that is just amazing. Very much different than anything else I used to feel in the past, but still orgasmic. I also learned to use my labial lips as a buffer, I guess you might say, in a kind of pushing down motion right above where my clitoris sits would start to feel better and better and better and actually make me full-on orgasm. The kind of earth-shattering, body-shaking, I can't believe it could feel this good feelings. And I don't recall ever having read that before, but recently I went over to Dr. Marcy Bauer's FAQ. I actually found a section where it described that motion as particularly pleasurable and something you might try after surgery. I've had at least one other cisgender friend say that that's what gets her off. I don't know how common that is among cisgender women though. Now when I do come for that first time, I come pretty hard, and what comes out is a clear lube-like liquid. For those of you wondering if post-op transgender women, when we come, we actually ejaculate like we did before, no, nothing like that. At that point, all bets are off in terms of touching my clitoris directly. In fact, even before that point, once I've started working my way up into an orgasm, you can start touching it. Although still not entirely directly, it just feels good if you kind of rub like that really quickly right over the clitoral hood. And yes, I do have a clitoral hood too. A little part of my clitoris is exposed, which I can touch directly, but surrounding it is actually more sensate tissue below the surface that feels really good to rub as well. And the magical thing is that if you keep rubbing even after I've had my orgasm, is that it'll quickly start building up to another one. And that orgasm, when it hits, ends up being much different than any of the other previous ones I described. It ramps up really fast, and then when I hit it, it's like I hit this peak and I can just stay there. Except that I actually can't, because it becomes so exhausting I have to stop. My whole body might lift off the bed and I'll start to make sounds that'll make my throat start to hurt. And I might start to shake and lose just all bodily control. And when that happens, it's almost like I short circuit myself and I just have to stop. And it's all amazing and I can't believe it's something I can experience now. Thank you so much, Dr. Bowers. I am and I remain my best sex partner, but I think that's common for a lot of people. And knowing my body and what I like can't be a bad thing. On that note, have a happy holidays. I'll see you in 2018 and see you around the interwebs.